Hi, I'm Sam Black, the host of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters reunion panel for New York Comic Con. Now, many of you watched this reunion on the New York Comic Con's YouTube channel. It's one of the best performing videos on there. Don't want to brag, but there was a lot that we had to cut out. And that's what we're showing you right now. This is a ton of stuff that you didn't know about the voice actors behind the main cast of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. And you're going to like what you see, I hope. I certainly learned a lot. I think you're going to learn a lot. And let's have a good time. Now, let's kick this off. I want to introduce the very first person. And who else would be number one but the man, the myth, the legend, Yugi himself, Dan Green. Welcome, Dan Green.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Great, thanks. Your hair is luscious.
Thank you.
You look like a witcher. I love it.
Well, that's a high compliment. I don't know that I deserve it, but thank you for that.
Yes. And let's bring in numero dos. Let's say a big welcome to Wayne Grayson.
Yay.
Bigger welcome than that. Bigger.
A bigger welcome.
Thank you.
Is that the best we have for Joey Wheeler? Come on.
Hey!
Because I don't have the hair of a Dan Green, I must be maligned. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Truth, yeah.
I'm not half as sorry as I am.
Dan might be using performance enhancing follicle supplements.
I'll never tell.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We don't test for that. So coming up next, we have Amy Birnbaum, the voice of Taya Gardner.
Hey!
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
We're all surviving.
Good to see you guys.
Oh yes, good to see you. And of course, we've got Tristan Taylor right here coming in. Greg Abbey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey!
Hey, ho.
Whoa, we're doing hands.
It's insane.
Doing welcome hands. Greg, I wanted to start with a question for you, actually.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm just right off the bat.
Do it. Sure.
You're in the hot seat.
Hard hit it.
Going to start with something very controversial. Who is your least favorite character? The last person you'd want to see right now.
Oh, from the show?
Oh yeah, last person you'd want to show up in this Zoom call.
That's an easy one. I would definitely go with Kaiba. I'm super psyched that it's just the four of us today. So.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry, I'm getting some interference.
So wait.
I think.
Wait. You're saying that I am your least favorite character in the show?
I didn't know this was recording. Are we recording? No. Let's take it back.
But it's interesting that you say that.
Was my favorite character.
Oh, okay. Because see, it's interesting that you say that because I always thought that it should have just said Kaiba featuring Yu-Gi-Oh as the title of the show.
Everybody, welcome Eric Stuart, voice of Sento Kaiba.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
I mean,
to see all the
this is
twerps.
yes.
Yeah.
This is everyone. Well, this is almost everyone because I feel like we're missing a master of industrial illusions right now.
No, please.
Wait, let me pick up that hint you just dropped.
Hold on. Oh, I dropped and whoa!
Whoa! What the?
Oh my!
I was trying to do the Brady Bunch thing. I'm like,
Yeah, but we don't know where we're positioned. Yeah.
Let's all look at all four directions, and then they can edit it together.
all right,
There we go. This is
nail that.
Let's just
We
do
got
that
it.
for 30 minutes, I think.
that's our time, everybody. Thank you very much. It's been great. Reunion complete. So I want to start with some questions about voice acting. First of all, Dan, let's start with you. When did you start voice acting? And how did you get started? Because I know a lot of people have very, very different journeys into the industry.
Yeah, so I started about a little over 20 years ago, and my path began as an actor, which is not the path that everyone starts off with. I actually went to the same school that Greg did, and I was mainly pursuing theater, and which is where I really felt I was the happiest as a performer. And another mutual friend of ours, Anthony Salerno, a long time ago said, "Hey, do you want to do some dubbing work in anime?" And I was like, "No." But then he said it paid, and I was like, okay. And I don't even remember the first thing that I worked on, probably because it wasn't really that memorable. But that just got that ball rolling. And anybody who's done theater, certainly professionally, understands there's a lot of great things about it, but it's not the easiest path to follow. And one of my canned responses about voiceover work is it's way better than a real job. And so the more the voiceover work started taking off, the more I kept following it. And and that's probably the simplest answer I could give.
That's great. Well, then this is a great segue. Let's move on to Greg.
So you went to the same school. Were you approached by the same person to get into the business?
Yeah. So as Dan said, we studied acting together and lived together all through college. And one of our closest friends who also lived with us is Anthony Salerno. I mean, this is the same story. So very close friends. We lived together in college, after college, and Tony was falling into that world, the anime world. He was doing some dubbing and directing. And like Dan, I don't totally remember the project, but Tony called us up and said, "Hey, I'm working on this. Will you guys come in?" Dan, I think we probably started on the same thing, maybe, but It was at the beginning, right? So that was sort of the start of it. And then in terms of 4 Kids, Tony was the same. It was him who said, "Hey, I heard they're doing these auditions for Yu-Gi-Oh!" And so that's how I think Dan both got in the door initially at 4 Kids.
It's a dual origin story. That's very cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a feature film coming out nowhere.
How about Amy? Amy, how did you find your way into the voiceover world?
Well, I did not go to study acting, but I had always thought I wanted to do voiceovers, and I work in the kids media business and had been doing some scratch audio for a project we were working on. And my boss at the time had said, "I have a friend who runs a little voice studio. You should meet him." And we connected, and he's like, "Come on in for some auditions." And he was like, "You're great." And I started doing kid voices for an unknown show called Pokemon at the time. And just was doing little random young kids and young women, and then landed the role of Max. And then through that, met the folks at 4 Kids and read for Taya, and that's how it went. It was sort of a kind of a core group of us who sort of popped around on a lot of roles. And
that's cool. So, so you were actually interested in voiceover from the outset. It wasn't really something that you fell into.
No, I knew I never wanted to be in front of the camera, but I have, growing up, I did theater and singing and acting, but I just knew behind the mic was a better place for me. In fact, this Zoom call is stressing me out. Like, I'm on.
I see a lot of people who do music in some kind ending up in voiceover. Just show of hands.
So true.
Who here does music in some way, sings or plays an instrument or that kind of thing? It's okay. This is I'm seeing a shake of the head here from Wayne. Wayne, how did you start? How did you get into this craziness?
It's a similar but different cast of characters story as Dan and Greg have. I went to NYU to be a dramatic actor, a Shakespearean actor, which I still try to do as much as I can. And after
you do very well.
You're a very good one.
Steam media and stuff. So was Greg. But after I graduated and spending a lot of time living hand to mouth and not getting any work, I somehow cobbled together enough money to submit my headshot and resume to Backstage, which does that still exist? The magazine, the trade?
Yeah, it's still around.
I think online, yeah.
Well, back in the day, they were still in print, and they had a thing called the agent portfolio, where you gave them some money in your headshot, and your headshot got in front of all the casting directors in New York. And I was like, well, hey, I'll somehow get the money. Did that, and I got 2 phone calls out of the entire New York City professional society, and one was a person I went to college with, I never wanted to see again, and the second was a guy casting an anime a direct-to-video anime. I can't remember the name of it either, but I had put on my resume that I did celebrity impressions and accents and dialects, and he foolishly assumed I'd had experience. And I lied and said I did, and I auditioned and I got the job. And that guy knew Anthony Salerno. All roads lead to him. He got me involved with Central Park Media, and I think that led to 4Kids, and it's kind of a tight-knit group for a while.
Did you have a favorite celebrity impersonation in your back pocket?
Gentlemen, my friends, do you know what my favorite would be?
Christopher Walken.
I don't know, Greg, who I would possibly do in a Zoom meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, man. That, of course, was Jack Nicholson.
Yes, of course. Thanks. You gave us all an opening. Had to ask. All right, Eric.
Same question?
Oh, yeah, same question. How'd you get in?
All right, so my Reader's Digest condensed version is I left school to play music. I've always been a musician. And I was working at a tennis club teaching tennis. Yeah, that's right. And I know, if you can tell from my physique.
I love tennis. Big fan.
And one of the members there came up to me and said, "Hey, I hear you're interested in the recording studios and all of that, and I happen to own one, and we need a new assistant. Are you interested in maybe coming in and applying for the job?" And I said, "That would be great." So I went into this little production house in New York called Reel to Reel, and it was run by these two amazing women, one of which, Alice Whitfield, who was in Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris. Fantastic singer, did all the D'Agostino commercials. If you grew up in New York, you know the D'Agostino stuff. And she brought me in, and basically I had phonophobia. I was afraid to speak on the phone, which was great for a future voice actor. Also, I did sort of the Karate Kid version of training. I cleaned the counters, I made the coffee, wax on, wax off. There was no sort of like, okay, now you're in the booth or you're producing or whatever. I thought it was a music studio. And so after about a week, I asked, when are the bands coming in? And she said, well, we don't really record bands here. We cast and produce radio and TV voiceovers. And I was like, that's a job? They're like, well, yeah, that's your job. This is what we do here. And I was like, well, okay. So for the next 10 years, I started off as a production assistant, then assistant casting director, then casting director. Then I was the in-house producer for all of the agencies that came in. I was directing some of the best talent in New York City. I mean, at that time, we're talking like, mid to late 80s. I'm old as dirt. And so some of them, fantastic actors who at that time, voice acting was kind of like the fill-in gig. Right? So all the Broadway people, all the TV, the movie people, they loved this gig because they couldn't be seen, so that they could hawk like these products and make money in between gigs. But it wasn't like, oh, now I'm a voice actor, which of course is much more popular now, unfortunately. But so anyway, I learned by being a sponge. I learned from watching and directing a lot of these amazing, talented people. And then I ran the studio. And one of my clients said to me one day, "Hey, Eric, I would fill in for auditions. Like if someone didn't show up, I would jump in the booth and read with people." And at one point, I got booked on a job because they liked the last guy who didn't slate his name. And I was like, well, that's just me. I'm just filling in. They're like, yeah, but we like you the best. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That could be interesting. So one of my clients said, "Hey, I know these people that are casting for these sort of anime projects and they're looking for young voices. Are you interested in that?" And I'm like, are you kidding? I can do my best Casey Kasem from G-Force. That's what I grew up watching. I could do that. And so I auditioned for a bunch of anime back then, and that's where that all started. And so when I left my day job to do music for a while and go on the road, it was a perfect career choice to be able to do voiceovers from anywhere there was a studio. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Wait, now Eric, that was the Reader's Digest for you?
You know me, Dan. I mean, honestly, I could go on, and I will. Yeah. So yeah, but that's 30 years of a career. So there you go.
That's wild. And you and Amy both got a start getting booked off of Scratch Audio.
No, mine was an audition, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really doing it. That's true. There you go.
That's wild. And Darren, how about you?
I mean, do we still have time? I don't know.
I mean, we got
see my space
about
station?
a couple minutes left. Yeah.
I love you, Eric Stuart. Eric Stuart was a big part of how I got into stuff. I had a theater background, and I was doing the Pokemon Live national tour.
Yeah.
So like the stage version. It's my first gig out of college, and those producers obviously had acquired Yu-Gi-Oh! And were auditioning people and asked if I wanted to read. And there at my audition was Eric Stuart reading me for a part, and I'd never done voiceover before. I really did not know what I was doing. Like Eric can probably vouch for that. And
all right. You did a great job, obviously.
I think I think I was funny-ish, just to not to toot my horn, and I think they liked that, and so it was all history from there.
And you're also such a talented singer that I think that came through in the fact that you understood voice inflection, and that made it easier. So
I think singers are generally good at this. Yeah. I feel like
they understand, especially for dubbing, because they understand how to put something into a meter that already exists.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that was a big plus for you. Yep.
And controlling their voice, pitch wise.
Totally.
Darren's also a wonderful pianist.
That's true.
You guys.
Yeah.
He's okay. Let's not oversell it, guys. I mean,
you're good with guitar.
I mean, he's nice. I mean, he's a nice guy. Fine. Okay. We love Darren. He's great.
We're gonna this is gonna end in
I love this.
This is gonna end in a simultaneous piano recital and tennis demo. I should have mentioned that at the top.
I prepared 2 pieces.
I've got wicked backhand.
Greg and I were
excellent
musical people and just not worked as much.
Nice.
So the second question we've got here is, do you ever take the voiceover stuff that you do, the changing of the voice, all of that, and just implement that in your everyday life? Whether it's, I'm bored, I've got a telemarketer calling me, I'm going through a drive-through, I'm entertaining my kids.
Only when speaking like dogs that I meet on the street. I put a voice on every dog that I ever meet. I talk
my wife Michael and I. Michael also did some voiceover work before she passed away, and sometimes people would ask us like, "Oh, do you guys do voices at home together?" And our initial response was like, "Oh no, of course we don't." And then we thought about it, we're like, "Yeah, actually we do. We actually do that all the time." And it's another. I also have 2 kids, so I'm doing voices for them, mostly yelling at them.
That's a voice that counts.
I call it a character. They call it anger.
All the examples you've said is what I do too, like telemarketers. Man, it makes it worth having a useless landline still. To get the telemarketers and go like, yes, I'm interested. Sign me up. And my children could not care less about my work, so whatever. Like,
my kids have gotten probably the best reading of the Harry Potter series.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
That than the average parent, I would say. Every character gets a voice, so it's pretty. I would say that's the highlight of my voice application at home.
Awesome.
Definitely.
It's got uses. Look out, Jim Dale.
Yeah.
He's sweating.
So this next question, and like all of them, these are for everybody. What is the most challenging thing you find about bringing a character to life? Let's go around the circle. Let's start with Dan.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question because each character has its own challenge. Sometimes you're cast for something that's closer to you, other things are further away. And I think probably the most relevant thing is to understand that character's point of view. And that informs a lot of other stuff. Some other people might describe it as finding the heart of the character, not the heart of the cards, or the spine of the character, right? But if you don't understand how that character is seeing things, then you don't understand how that character is going through things, which is the function of acting, right? You go from one place to another. So I think that's probably the most important thing. And the other stuff are details that fill in around that.
Right. And Amy, is that the same for you? It's finding the essence of the character and that's it all kind of comes together from there. Like, what is this character's point of view?
For me, because I think I tend to get cast in similar characters, I think it's more about finding the right voice first and then finding who that character is, just knowing more of their attitude I would say the attitude is probably the most important thing for me. And sometimes I'll box myself into a corner. Like I've auditioned and landed roles based on a voice that came out great at the audition, and then I got stuck with this really challenging voice. Bones is probably an example here in Yu-Gi-Oh! That was pretty rough. But I think it's finding the voice. I think it's a challenge to, when you're playing young kids, to make them sound authentic, to a degree. That's pretty challenging. So they don't, they all kind of sound a little, that's a girl doing a boy's voice. So that's probably.
Has having kids made doing the voices of young kids easier?
It's made the attitude easier. I think the intonations and the things to say, and I haven't thought of it like that, but yeah, I guess it has added to it.
Well, Greg, the same question to you. Do you start point of view? Is it a visual thing? What do they look like? How do I think their voice sounds in my head? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of that. It's sort of like seeing the character itself really helps. And then for me, it's sort of getting the voice down. I think attitude is a big part of it. I think some of the stuff that Dan was talking about is, I don't know that I'm working with that at the beginning. I'm basically just trying to come up with a voice that fits and makes sense and hopefully get the part. And then I think the key is really in the acting of it. And so, I always, over time where we've done these sorts of panels or conventions or whatever, people are like, what's the first thing you should do if you want to be a voice actor? And I always say you should study to be an actor, because whether you're voice acting, audiobooks, commercials, theater, you need to know how to act. And I think you definitely need to know it can't just be about the voice. So even if it's about like, oh, this is what I think it sounds like, and you might work the director's key. So when I worked with Eric or Darren, they sort of help you shape it. Then it's about keeping it consistent. But in terms of performing it, then it becomes about everything. It might not be as complex as doing a deep Broadway show or something like that, but you're still thinking about intention. What do I want? Where am I going? How's the character feeling? And so it's important to have all of that stuff that you can start to fold in once you sort of nail the voice.
Totally. And Wayne, how about you?
Yet again, I've been like, it's the same kind of stories that I would tell that everybody else has been saying. But one thing I will add to what's been said, and I hear it a lot, is that it's not, you can't just walk in and do a silly voice. Like, voice acting is such a specific skill set. Like, I know some amazing stage actors that can't do this to save their lives, and vice versa. And it just seems like with the technology that's available, people think they can just do it. And you know what? Some can. Some get away with it, but you need to know what you're saying and how to act it, and with just your voice. Like, one of the things I find hard to do is just spontaneously, or not spontaneously, but quickly get to a profound emotional level. Like Dan and Greg and I think Eric, we were doing a project that Dan was directing, and my character had a lot of emotion, but it came off of like these huge battles, kind of like a Yu-Gi-Oh situation where we're screaming at each other and fighting, and there's pain, and then just having to go from that. That's not really happening to you, but then they get this emotional state, but just with your voice. It's hard to do.
Totally.
And I traumatized you to help you get there, right?
You were sticking me with pins.
Yeah.
You were sticking me with pins. You were throwing apple cores at me.
Very metaphysics.
That worked a lot. Holding my mother worked.
Filling the booth with snakes.
Sam, if I could add to that, the other thing is, like, for me, I think you can overthink this stuff. Like, I strip it down to just the credibility of the approach, right? Who am I? What am I talking about? Who am I talking to? There's nothing new, right? There's nothing new. So, like, if you give me a character, I'm going to know, is this a villain? Is this a good guy? Okay, and the subtleties we can develop, but I don't come up with the voice. I try to make my voices sound different for characters that I play, but I don't come in with that. My thing is, how can I relate to what this is? What it's competition? I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh, battling. I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, so it's like I can relate to the competition factor. I don't need to know the backstory. Now, I know some actors want to know that, but I don't. I think that clouds my approach to it. Just give me the bare bones of the facts I need, and I can make this believable, hopefully, as an actor.
Right. You like to create a lot of space that you fill in with your own experiences.
Well, because I think if I start to overthink it and micromanage it, it becomes I'm working off the page. I'm not actually acting. So
that makes sense.
That at least for me,
Totally.
I'm actually better at the first cold read than after the 15th time you've told me how to say those 3 words.
Yeah, and
it doesn't make you know what I mean? Like,
Totally. And to Wayne's point about you can't just walk in and do a silly voice, I feel like I am definitely the least experienced of the bunch. I've only been doing this 10 years. But it's certainly from when I started to what it is now, what people are looking for is so much more naturalistic. And people really don't, they're not looking for character so much as when I started. And I'm sure when I started, it was even less than it was before as well.
And character stuff is great, but that's whipped cream, right?
Yeah, totally.
Strip that away. Is there actually something going on in your line delivery, or are you hiding behind a funny voice? I know a lot of people that do funny voices that can't act.
Right. Yeah. Well, Darren, what's your process like? Is it a visual approach? Is it your personal experiences? How do you get into a character?
I think for me it's a balance of the 2 things we're kind of talking about, like the actual technical character voice you've chosen, whether it's tenory or hooty or whatever those adjectives would be, and then the acting choices and getting to move in tandem, and especially at the beginning of a series, the first one is harder, the former is harder to keep consistent, and there's constant reminders of like, here's your reference, this is your audition, you know what I mean? But then after a while, something kind of clicks in. And I would say after, a handful of episodes, you don't really have to worry about, am I placing it right? Is this where the character, what it sounds like? You can just sort of inhale and go for the acting choices. And there's always that third variable of the lip flap, but.
Totally. So. And do you find that the longer, and I'm sure this is a universal thing, that the longer you do a character, the more effortless it becomes?
Yeah, and I've noticed that in most of my actors too. I mean, occasionally, like the actors I work with, they're doing audiobooks and they're doing other roles and other shows. So I get sometimes that it's a little hard to, like, at the beginning of a session, just get them back to one and get them back into that voice, But in general, it becomes easier for all of them.
Yes, and I should mention this to anyone who's watching who doesn't know this, that Darren is the current director of the show.
Yeah,
I didn't say that when I introed you. It's a big deal.
And just so everyone knows, Sam is an amazing actor and has done numerous roles on the Yu-Gi-Oh series. Like, if you need a guy, he's incredible.
And Greg Abbey, I know him.
Well, thank you very much, Darren. I want to also go around the room and ask what you love the most about the character you voice. Because now that we've talked about your process of getting into it, what is that piece of the character, whether it's an attitude, whether it's a way they react to things, what is it that you love the most about the main Duel Monsters character that you perform? So let's start in the same order that we did before. Dan, first.
I get to play 2 characters in Yu-Gi-Oh, as you might know, and I really appreciate the dichotomy and what that allows me to do as a performer. And of course, Yugi and Yami, they influence each other over time, which was nice to see that too. And Greg, who's known me for so long, can back me up that what I do for Yami, I was never like a big hero guy, right? And nor would I be mistaken for a little boy. But it's nice to be able to stretch outside yourself. A part of what's fun about acting is that you get to be something other than you naturally are. I think that's probably one of the things that I love most about acting. And so Yami obviously has the power, and he's very dramatic, probably drinks way too much coffee. And Yugi gets to be the sweet, innocent type. And it's really fun to play up and down, that continuum. I also really enjoy playing villains, but that's really more true to my nature.
And so I feel like the thing that you have really the most fun with is maybe the dichotomy of playing off yourself.
I would say that, I'm doing an audiobook right now, and there's like 60 characters. It's fun, and just to go one step back to the skills of being a voiceover actor. So I also teach voiceover technique, and one of the things I teach is character stuff. And so understanding what you're doing with your voice physically to make each interpretation specific is a skill that anybody who wants to pursue this should have. Yes, the acting first, but also understand how you're using your body to bring these characters to life through sound, right?
Totally.
So,
and I feel like a lot of people can work a while before they figure that out. It took me probably 5 or 6 years before I even thought about something like, where am I placing something in the hard palette? Like the technique thing was not second nature at all. Like, it wasn't just like you do it and it comes to you. It's a real skill.
But like many skills, it's learnable, right?
Totally. Yeah. So, Amy, a follow-up to that, being able to perform a character in kind of more like your natural voice, do you feel like that gives you more wiggle room emotionally when it comes to your performance? Because I notice sometimes if I'm doing a really specific voice, I sometimes encounter things where I'm like, I don't know how to perform tragically sad as this person, because there is that box that you've put yourself into.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Yeah, with Taya, I just get to say the lines how she, or be in the role and emote the way I would emote normally. So it's definitely easier to tap into the emotional range for her than. But let's face it, her emotional range is really just like, you can do it, and that's the extent of her range, except for when it's being like, Joey, you're an idiot. And those are the two.
Well, segue here to a voice that's like really not your natural voice. Let's talk about Joey's voice, Wayne, and the way that
you mean it's not his natural voice?
Well, he's.
I was just going to say that was the accent I grew up with.
I was going to say, if you knew anything about Wayne Grayson, he actually had to lose that accent.
I did.
No way.
I spent all that time in college trying to shake that accent.
Yep.
And to become like a well-projected, well-supported Shakespearean actor, and now I got to do this again for real, And it's funny because it's actually you want to get technical about it. The voice is I'm doing an impression of my brother, who still talks that way, even though he moved to South Carolina 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can we hear a little bit of your brother now if he calls you up and complains about?
Hey, the other day. I drive to the Walmart. This idiot he tries to take my spot. I was like, hey, don't, what do you saw I was pulling in there. What's your problem? All y'all need to get out of here.
This is very My Blue Heaven. I love this.
Yeah, it is. Except I've been down.
It's funny because I modeled Yami off of my older sister.
I went down to South Carolina because my brother's a teacher, and they had a career day thing, and he wanted to be like a rock star, as he said, and he asked me to come down and speak to the class, and I was there speaking like this, and my brother was going, yeah, he's my brother over here, he does voices. Okay, all right.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's the voice guy?
Very funny.
Seriously, it was like a role reversal kind of thing.
That's wild.
To the question though, I've loved doing Joey's voice like from the beginning, because one of the things is, as I said, all that Shakespearean training I had, and there's subtleties to the text and everything, but to be able to just go full crazy and overreact to everything, and by myself, so I don't have to worry about screwing up anybody else's performance or whatever. It was very liberating, and as Amy said, like I can easily just jump into that voice and just have fun. That's just been such a liberating thing, like I said, and it's just a fun thing and very easy to do. And the thing is, like, as loud and as broad as he is, he has his moments of emotional.
He does.
Totally. Well, that's really cool, that childhood connection. I had no idea. Yeah. Well, Greg, how about you? With Tristan, what's your favorite element of performing Tristan Taylordom?
So, it would be really silly to overstate this with Tristan. I mean, sort of like, and listen, I love the character, I love the show, but Tristan basically was, go Yugi! I just encapsulated his whole, being in essence. So I can't get too deep about him because it's just not there in terms of a character. And, when I think about the show, and I feel like this a lot about my time at 4Kids when we were in the heyday and we're on a bunch of shows and there's all this community of actors going in and out. I just think about the people. So the part was fun, but for me, it was more like working with my best friends working with Darren or Eric, seeing people coming in and out. That was a time when, people weren't married with kids and we were going out every night and hanging out. And so, I mean, I can't speak. Yeah, what? We were?
You learned it. I love that you use past tense.
Yeah. Well, not anymore, dude. It's in my living room. Yeah, right. But anyway, so it was a really fun character. It wasn't a big leap. It's basically my voice elevated a little bit, basically playing the same beats pretty much every episode. So when I think about my experience on the show, for me, it's more about the people that I got to work with. That was like the most important thing and the best part of it.
And I have to say, it's so apparent just as a third party here, like how well and deeply you all know each other, the like long relationships you all have. You're chiming in, oh, I know this about this person, I know this about that person. You guys all clearly know each other really well. And that's something that I find is kind of rare in voiceover sometimes, because the way it is, where it's kind of like single serving acting, where you're walking in and you're the only person in the booth. It can take effort to go meet the other people in your community of voice actors.
Well, I think that the thing that was great for a while, it was a good run. It was like 6 or 7 years, because it's so sporadic as an actor. You don't have a real job. So it's a job here, it's a job there. That even if you were only going in maybe you're going 2 to 3 times a week, it was this one place that you could sort of hold on to as an anchor, and that you would consistently see these people. It wasn't a 9-to-5 job, but it was some repetitive behavior of like, oh, there they are, we're going out at night. So it was really for me, I just look back so fondly on that time, and mostly because of this community of artists and creative people that were so funny and creative. And so that's what I think about when I think about this show. And is it 20 years? I mean, did it start in 2000? And the fact that we're still able to talk about it and still see each other and is pretty amazing.
And
Amy, you look beautiful.
Well, let me just add to what Greg said. I mean, Darren and I have a benefit that maybe the other guys don't, is that I got to direct these guys, and so did Darren. Right. So like, I worked with these people for hours and hours every week for years, and got to really understand the talent and their personalities and the friendships. I mean, I don't get to see these guys that much, but like, I consider all of these people, like, these are like dear friends. These are people that I truly care about, because I know everything like that we share as people. You work, so I didn't pass them in the halls. I mean, as the actor, I might have. I got to spend hours and hours working with them, and it's like you share everything.
Totally, it's really personal.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, I also know the depth of some of these people, but their acting chops, that some are known for certain characters, and I'm like, honestly, like, here you learn about Wayne being a Shakespearean actor. Wayne probably played about 15 to 16 different characters for me on a show where he had to do all sorts of dialects, and I knew he could do it. Like, it wasn't like it's a one trick pony thing. And those are the kinds of things you don't learn unless you're in there pushing that actor and seeing what kind of piece of clay they are, to see what their range is. You only know them for one thing because that's the role they might be the best known for. So
absolutely. And Eric, let's keep going with you. Let's along that same line of questioning, what is your favorite part? What do you enjoy the most about performing Seto Kaiba?
So Kaiba was the last character to be cast as the main characters in this thing, because the producer had not heard the voice he was looking for. And what I think I am drawn to, besides the sarcastic stuff, which is not a stretch for me, I know that's a surprise, but that's not it's fun. And I know that the fans love the witty barbs and stuff like that. But the challenge as an actor is this: Kaiba is not a villain. He is a rival. And you can't have a hero without someone that pushes that hero to be the best that they can be. So the fine line I walk is, you might not like me, but hopefully you don't hate me. I'm not doing anything that's truly true. Maybe tearing up the card was a big thing, but the challenge of walking that line, because we've seen it when the chips are down, who teams up to fight a common enemy? The Pharaoh and Kaiba have done that many times. But my goal is to push him. And of course, when we go to this is how geeky I am. We go to the Egyptian story arc, you see that Kaiba's true role is I'm his sparring partner.
Yeah.
I am not his enemy. So how do you become a sparring partner in modern day high school? You're a rival.
Totally. Yeah,
So
you
that
really
was the challenge.
root for him.
Yeah, that was the challenge. So I love that. I love that because it's not that far from my voice. It's there was someone that hated the way that we worked with, that hated the way I called him Yugi, but I had to do that, and I still do that now. But it's not a stretch in the voice. It's the idea of how to play that, walk that line.
Absolutely. And so this is, I feel like there's a lot to chew on for you, Darren, because Pegasus has so much voice. There's so much to Pegasus. And if I were in your position, I would have a very hard time picking a favorite element of Pegasus's voice. But what is your favorite part of doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I think what Greg said rings true. And it's maybe a little bit less about the actual delivery of a certain line or a specific episode. It's more about where we were in our lives and the environment that was created there. Like to be like, fresh out of college and to immediately have a circle of people, an environment to cling to, you know what I mean? I used to be so excited when I get the call to like, yeah, we need you for half an hour. I'd be like, I'm there. I couldn't wait to get to 4 kids to do my 4 lines in that episode. You know what I mean? And not to be a downer, but like 9/11 happened right then. And like, just to have, Eric and I recorded an episode on 9/11, like just to have that family nearby, just to sort of get you through what were exciting and turbulent times is probably what I remember more than anything.
That's a big deal. And, as someone who is the youngest person here and was growing up when Duel Monsters was on TV, it's just wild to me to see this and be like, wow, the center of the world of children's animation dubbing was you guys at 4Kids at that time in animation in New York. And that's just, it's wild to see that you guys are this kind of sort of John Hughes-esque Brat Pack of
I'm Molly Ringwald. I'm Molly.
Yeah, oh, man.
And when we go to those events, like often it's a pair of everyone you see on the screen here. Like Wayne and I will go to Columbus, Ohio, and do a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. I feel like we've all done those at one point or the other. And those stories that, like Dan said, that you hear about how this show that like on paper is just like playing cards, you know what I mean? That it could run so deep for people and affect people so deeply. It catches you off guard to the point where I'm like, what? Not that we're heroes, but we're heroes.
Yeah, the show has a moral.
Yeah, you'll get it when you go to a convention. There'll be a line and just kind of like just factory, just signing a card and saying answering what's your favorite, and then all of a sudden you get this really emotional story from somebody about how that your work helped them through a crisis of one kind or another, and it never ever gets old. It's always makes me get emotional too, because like you're saying, it's a card game that we thought, right. And there were monsters, and I'm not completely clear on how did we know Yami was Yugi at the same time. I'm not sure.
It's never explained.
But just the fact that it had such an impact on people and a positive impact, it's not just that there was a competition or trading cards or whatever, that people's lives were somehow made a little better.
I think you had a great combination of all the elements. You had a storyline that was, based, it had a moral, their friendship, there was a good message. You had a great cast. Thank you very much. But honestly, this is a great cast here. And you had great writers and I think, nothing is new. So that story can be told in different ways. And here it was told in this way with fun monsters and all of that, but you strip it down and there's something worthwhile there. And I think there were characters that everyone could connect to, whether you like the hero, whether you like the rival, whether you like the comedic best friend, whatever. Someone could relate to somebody in that show. And that's the ABCs of what makes a show successful. So if you have characters that nobody likes and nobody relates to, nobody's going to watch it. But there was something for everybody in this, because I think that there was quality behind it. As silly as My Blue Eyes White Dragon might be used over and over again, honestly, I think there's a good moral to the story.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that you find in creating entertainment that's consumed by kids that you can't really get anywhere else. You get to perform this formative role for a lot of kids growing up, consuming something. And there's something inherently more meaningful about saying, oh, you're from my childhood, than saying like, oh, you're from this movie I really liked that I watched when I was 27.
Totally.
Yeah, I think we've all benefited from this comment from a fan at one of those conventions at one time or another. Thanks for making my childhood awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you feel you deserve that, it's a nice thing to be told.
Sure.
A nice way to say it.
Absolutely.
And it's true. Like, I don't think any of us really knew what we were doing, you know, like what we were a part of.
No idea.
I mean, just back to the New York thing, it felt really cool to be voiceover work. It felt really like secret, like this sort of small studio, small community. People were like, how are you getting into this? And it's like, I don't know, there's this like underground studio and we're just pumping out a ton of stuff and we get to play all these different characters. And it just, like, I had no idea like what I was involved in. I was just like, yeah, I just went in and yelled some lines and, you know, scream, you know, had to match a lip flap and had to do like, can you make a surprised sound like 20 different ways? And you're like, yeah, sure, no problem, bye. And it was just, you really didn't know. And I think it was like 10 years later, you know, you move, a neighbor is like, oh my God, I can't believe you're my neighbor. I loved you in this show. And you're like, oh, wow. You know, you just don't even know you're a part of something.
And part of it is that I think voiceover is still so mysterious to so many people. There is, you know, you look at the media, the zeitgeist of like, what does voiceover look like when it's represented on screen? And there's like Mrs. Doubtfire, and that's it. A lot of people don't have a realistic concept of what voiceover looks like in practice. And we're so exposed to screen acting that we all feel vaguely familiar with like, oh, I know what they do. And I think part of it is that mystery makes it really exciting to a lot of people because they don't really have a sense of what it is to walk into the booth and do this job. So before we get on to our last question here, I want to ask something a little bit more personal, which is what are you guys all grateful for? Whether it's related to your work as the character, being able to come back and continue playing that character, whether it's the fans, whatever it is, even if it's unrelated and it's about your development as a voiceover actor, what is it that you are most grateful for as it relates to all this?
All of that, all that stuff. Like, this was probably for a lot of us our training ground, and for a lot of us, like the first recurring role that we've had. Definitely for me. And on a personal side note, I met some of the greatest friends I have through this show, and we've been to each other's weddings, we've seen each other's kids start to grow up, and it would not have happened without this show. So there's that.
I also think that one of the things for me is when you're in the entertainment world, and so much is based on how much money you're making doing something, whether you can call yourself that thing. It's nice to be able to work on projects that you really enjoy, that are not, some people might think, oh, you're doing funny voices in a cartoon, but this is a way to really express so many other things. I find it therapeutic. I mean, some of the shows we did were exhausting because they were emotionally exhausting, and getting to work on something that actually had quality was very satisfying. Yes, it was nice to be paid for your work so you could eat, but I'm grateful for the fact that the things that I do for quote unquote a living are things that I love, and that, to me, that opportunity is something that I do not take for granted. To entertain, to make somebody think, to make somebody feel. That's the message of being an artist, right? Whether you're doing music, whether you're acting, whether you're painting, whatever, you want to make somebody think, because without that, you're not alive. So I am grateful for the fact that I am part of an industry that allows me to bring some thought to our very closed-minded world.
That was poignant. Who's gonna follow that?
I'm used to following Eric.
Yeah.
So for myself on a personal life level, it is no exaggeration to say that I probably would not have met my wife if I hadn't been cast in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's how I met Wayne, and I met my wife through Wayne's girlfriend at the time. It was a thing, but and that's something that honestly will never be anything but probably the most significant thing I've experienced in my life. But that's like the life context that we were talking about earlier. But as regards the show itself, another thing that is so resonant for me is when we make these appearances, and again, it's the fans, and I don't say that because I like attention or adoration, or I mean, a little bit's not bad, but like that's not what it's about. It's like this humbling thing. A young man in England shared with me that he had difficulty speaking. He was on the spectrum, and he had difficulty speaking. And for some reason, this show helped him deal with that. And he became a speech therapist.
Mm-hmm. I remember that guy.
Wow.
I don't take responsibility for that, but I feel very fortunate, and I'm very grateful to have, as randomly as it happened, understand that story and be a part of something that means something to people. And it means a lot of things in a lot of different ways, So yeah, that's really not to be underestimated.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, in a way, in the same way that Wayne was part of the story of you meeting your wife, you are now part of this person's story and where they are,
Yeah.
where they are. That's
For
fascinating. Sure. Amy, how about you?
Hard to follow all of these amazing words of gratefulness. I in this moment, I'm grateful to be healthy and with my family, and in this really strange and weird time in our world. But as it pertains to voiceovers and Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm grateful for the start in this industry that I had, and to have had such a wonderful and supportive group of people and peers and directors who took a chance on those of us who didn't, have a ton of experience, and gave us the foundation and the confidence to continue to pursue it and, be creative in this space. So, and I'm grateful also to the fans who reach out and share their love of the show and their desires to chat or have me on a podcast, or just sort of sharing their love of the brand and of our characters. So thanks for letting us be a part of it.
Wow. Yeah. Greg.
I mean, I've touched on this a bunch, but I'm definitely grateful for like the friendships I made sort of working at 4Kids and working on the show. That's really important. I mentioned this too, but like I said, like my son was 8 and he got super into the card game. And I would say over the years, we probably went to like 10 to 12 tournaments where I was like kind of hosting as mostly you say, but a little Tristan, but that he and I got to travel around the country and just have these experiences that were just so awesome for the two of us. And I'm so grateful that I got that opportunity to do that. And then being at these tournaments and then getting to meet these fans that I was always just amazed. Like for me, it was like, a lot of times I had this experience of people finding their tribe in this world, that maybe some people that didn't fit in maybe in other ways, the Yu-Gi-Oh community was a place for them to feel like these are my people. And I always felt that so tangibly at these events, like not everyone, but certainly some of these kids that didn't fit in other places in the world felt like, oh, this makes sense to me. And that we're also always just so polite and grateful for the show. So I'm just grateful to have had that experience with my son. And then because of that, getting to go to all these tournaments, get to interact with all the fans. So
totally. And that's one of the amazing things about the internet generally, is that, it's so easy to take something you love and really find a community around it now. It's a way that, like, what the internet has changed the most, I think, is boredom, because I feel like there's really kind of no boredom anymore. I can't, that just doesn't real. There's always something to look at. But the other thing is, I feel like loneliness, and people obviously still get lonely, and people need to, as COVID has shown, like, face-to-face interaction really has a significant psychological value. But what the internet has done to allow people to find folks find their tribe, to find people who like the things that they like, who are interested in what they're interested in, and to create a community no matter where they are. You know, they could be in some town of 3,000 people and have 100 friends all over the country or all over the world who love the things that they love. And to see that in the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom is super powerful. I want to end with you, Darren, also because you are the one here who also works full-time with the show. I mean, you are the most consistently connected to Yu-Gi-Oh now. And I wonder, as someone who's had this sort of very long connection to Yu-Gi-Oh and consistent connection to Yu-Gi-Oh all the time. I mean, it is your daily life in many ways still. What is your sense of gratitude with Yu-Gi-Oh?
I mean, 4 kids and then Konami always had pretzels. There were always pretzels there. They're still there. I haven't been there since March, but those pretzels, they're still there. No, seriously. I am really grateful that this is one of the few entertainment businesses that's still ticking. You know, it's been such a rough road in the past 6 months for, you know, my stage actor friends and on-camera people, and it's not lost on me at all that like we all get to keep plugging at this in a weird new, I'm in my basement kind of way, you know, and thank goodness. I know a lot of people aren't in that position to be able to keep working, and I think we barely skipped a beat. I think there was maybe like 2 weeks where we were just sort of like, how do we do this? And then you figure it out, and everyone had a home mic set up, and we're still recording Brains, and we're about to
start the next series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, coming soon. Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
This is the last question for everybody. This is a really, I think, one of the most poignant questions that we got asked by a fan. Very personal. And this is, what does Pot of Greed do?
Makes killer pesto sauce.
you pack your basil and
just happened
into the Pot of Greed. Yeah. Why don't we all in unison say, I draw 2 cards from my deck?
Yes.
How about that?
Yes.
Okay. First beep, second beep, third beep. I draw 2 cards from my deck. Okay. That's fine. Okay, cool. Okay, so we are out of time, but thank you guys so much. This has been such a pleasure to see you guys reunite, connect with each other, answer questions. Thank you so much to Dan Green. Thank you to Amy Birnbaum, Greg Abbey, Wayne Grayson, Eric Stuart, and my director, Darren Dunstan. Thank you. And thank you to the viewers watching through the New York Comic Con YouTube. And we'll hopefully all do this again soon.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.